Hello and welcome to Self-Worth 101, the podcast that talks about the stuff that matters with the people that matter, aka you. I am very excited about today. I don't mind admitting that I'm fangirling a little bit, and my guest is probably going to go very, very strange colour and go all red and embarrassed and sort of like fold herself up like a piece of paper. But I don't care because this is a really, really big moment for me. So just in case this is the first one that you are listening to, my name is Leanne Shaw and I'm the founder of the School of Self-Worth. And that's why this podcast is called Self-Worth 101. And I talk about a lot of things on this podcast to help you develop your self-worth, but I also bring in really, 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 really amazing people who want to share their journey as well, not just to teach us stuff, but also to inspire us and let us know that we are not alone. So today, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Paula Bradley. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Paula does in a second, but I've known Paula for many, many years, and I've sort of like just followed her around for a long time. And she does this amazing thing. She's got this incredible gift to be able to see things within people, insight and auric fields. And she does this energetic hypnotherapy that's just next level. And when I started learning to be a practitioner, I used to snap at her heels and go, Paula, teach me what you know. And she's like, I don't know how to do that. And I'm like, teach me. And I think I wore her down over a few years because she contacted me a few years ago and said, okay, I'm ready. I'll teach you. You get a group of people together and I'll teach you what I know. So I did. And what happened out of that is not only did we learn amazing wisdom from Paula, but we formed a group that is really, really special, which I lovingly refer to as the woo-woo group. And we talk about things that are way beyond normal comprehension. And well, Paula, who I'm talking to today, is who I align with, the queen of the woo-woo group. She's the leader. She's the sensei of the woo-woo group. So you can sort of sense how excited I am about talking to her today. So Paula grew up in the UK, and she became an art teacher and then moved to the United Arab Emirates, where she worked in primary school teaching art. Then she set up her own private practice where she was exhibiting her art. She was taking commissions. She was creating lots and lots of stuff. And yeah, in the United Arab Emirates, I mean, I imagine that would have been a challenge in itself. Then she moved to Spain, taught secondary art, and then here to Australia, where we became the lucky people and we got to meet her. And what I would love to ask you, Paula, to lead into this is, you've studied art, you've got a lot of experience in art. Then you moved to Australia and started your new venture, which is Colour Journeys, which is all about understanding energy fields and healing and balancing energy fields. What was it that made you jump from teaching art to almost using art as a therapy? What made you take that step?
Well, that was, of course, when I came from the Emirates. I came over here on holiday to stay with my sister. And I said to her, I want to learn art or colour, learn more about colour in a different dynamic. And she searched online everywhere for courses that I could do. And then she found the Aurosoma course, which is bottles, the equilibrium bottles, where you learn about the psychology. So I thought it was going to be all colour psychology, and I was super excited. It just happened to be the week I was there, a 5-day course, and I signed up for that. Wow. But it turned out to be very woo-woo, and I was absolutely freaked out, coming from being straight educationer, Emirates, like Portugal. And they did lots and lots of weird things where people sung to you and you had to hold hands and all this weird stuff. And I was just freaking out the whole week. It was just, but that I ended up kind of being the person like that uses it. But at the time, I was really from Emirates, which is very scientific, very straightforward, very factual, teaching lots of sort of shakes children and people from all around the world, just being really straight down the line there. And that's how I got into it, I guess. And I just loved the Aurosoma. I loved the psychology, the feel, the teachings. I didn't love all the woo-woo stuff at the time.
Which I just
Like,
find bizarre because it's almost like your first language now.
yeah, I think so, but it wasn't then. So even though I would have been very autistic then, I didn't like anybody that was. If I met anybody that was weird, they were just too weird.
Which is an interesting segue into that. So the thing that I'm really curious about is you now have that love of energetic fields, of insight, and as you say, of the woo-woo. How do you balance that with also being somebody with autism? Because I would imagine that the work that you do is very empathy based and it's very therapeutic. How do you moderate your need to just say it like it is, which is that autism directness versus the empathy? Has that ever got you into trouble before?
Oh yes, that's got me into trouble all of my life until I did the NLP coaching and trained myself to keep my mouth shut and think about stuff. But yes, there was that one. There's lots of occasions, but one of the funniest ones was I was at this big concert and my sister introduced me to someone and she said, Paula, this person's from England too. She lived in Gravesend. And I said, well, that's nothing to be proud of, is it? And they all went, whoa. I just said, I never said that. I didn't say that. They said you did. And my sister came up and she said, how could you be so tactless? I was like, oh, I don't know. I didn't even have the thought. It just, she said, came out her mouth and it came out my mouth. There was no, so that's the autism, you know, it's just reading straight in the auric, straight out the mouth. No, and I was like that as a child. I was always like that without knowing. So I think the NLP just helped me not talk and block block them out, what they're thinking. So unless they're in a session, I'm blocking them. And when they're in the session, I'm in control of what I'm reading and what I'm not reading.
So I guess that when you are working with people in your therapeutic space, that directness becomes an asset and that's what people want. But I know that you have a really big talent for being able to just look at people and almost download a whole heap of information about them and what's going on with them. It must be hard being in public settings when you just want to say something, but you find that you can't. So do you that need to share? How do you? At what point do you stop the need to share with that autism shutdown where you don't? Is it like people who learn a new language and they hear what's being said, then they translate it into their native language and then they work out how to say it? Do you find that you're always
exactly, I'm always doing that. So I get the information, translate it into my language, then find their language and say it to them. So it's like three languages because I'm reading information, I get it as a feeling, then I need to put in an image or a story of what it is, and then I need to say it in a way that they'll comprehend. So whoever they are and wherever they're from, whatever their background. So if they're in therapy, definitely we want to have a conversation before about them, and I pick up they're this sort of person, they're a farmer, they're this, they're very direct, or they're a miner, or they speak machine, or so you're getting, are they kinesthetic, are they auditory, are they visionary? And I literally translate it into whatever words they use, if it's simple, if it's intellectual, if it's academic, if they're woo-woo, if they just come for a quick smoking and I'm seeing this. It's just got to, otherwise it's all about communication, and if they don't comprehend you, there's no communication there.
Yeah,
So
isn't it? Listening to you say that, it makes me think that you're like that directness that you is your natural state, that directness, how you've then had to translate that and almost make that sound different. I think that in a way is really sad, because wouldn't it be great if us humans could all be more open and authentic and direct about what it is we're actually thinking? I mean, obviously without being offensive, but is directness offensive, or is it that we're taking it as offensive? Because I think it's really sad that that you have taught yourself, or you've had to teach yourself how to not be so direct, because that's one of the things that I love about you. I never know what's going to happen when I spend time with you. And but
I
every
think
single time you challenge and inspire me, because you say things so directly. And I reckon that we should all be more like that.
I do think it's appropriate to situations. Like when we meet, it's appropriate to that situations. I mean, I used to do the Women of Worth retreats that we did for years. I think during that weekend, everybody is open to therapy. And I know lots of people used to say, you realize you speak straight to people's soul or to their heart. And that's why they get it on every level. It's not the words you're saying, but it's appropriate in that situation. Whereas other people, you might see things or but it isn't appropriate because they're just minding their own business and don't want to know. And also maybe they don't need to know. And so I think it's really clear on your boundaries, which with autism, you don't have good boundaries. And I've had to train myself on those boundaries to be really clear on what's my business, what's yours business, and, you know, what's business. And if it's not my business, just leave it.
True. Well, that's a talent. I guess that's a talent we could all have more of. So tell me about there you were growing up in England, and then what led to the move to the United Arab Emirates? Because that's a fairly different culture.
Oh, that's a very different culture. But then it wasn't actually so different. I thought it was going to be. And I remember my dad saying, oh, you're going to a country full of Arabs. And he didn't like them because some Arab man had made him bankrupt. So he was really out to me. But when we got there, it was full of Indians, and I'm Anglo-Indian. So it ended up being more like my culture than England was.
Really?
Yeah, but how did I end up there? I was married at the time, and I was going through, we didn't just got married, but already we were like, well, should we get divorced? We'd been together a long time. But instead of doing that, my husband found a job out there, and he went, and I finished up my contract in my school, and then I went. So it was the best thing we ever did, really. And I just got a job before I left there to teach at a school there. And when I was thinking about this whole self-worth, I realized the journey from going to England to the Arab Emirates was a huge journey on my self-worth, actually, because I was teaching in England at a time when teachers weren't, in a very poor school, when teachers weren't particularly respected, or where I was living. And also, I didn't have a lot of money. So I was living in a tiny studio flat next to some alcoholics, you know, and you could look out the window and watch them stealing your wheel hubs. And I'd come out of the classroom and see my tires slashed. And when you look at self-worth, I don't know what my self-worth was then. I was all about just focusing on getting through a day or getting through the school year. It was more about survival and just doing the best at your job and being the best teacher. But I suddenly went to a very privileged school where it was paid and private, with less than half the amount of children in the class where you could teach properly, and in a huge house, and enough money to buy a lovely car, and treated like the Queen. I remember thinking, oh, suddenly all the parents kind of bowing down to you, the kids, they respect you, and life was so different. Doing the same person, same thing. And that's when I thought, how much of your self-worth is cultural and environmental, and where your status is within that being. But is that, I don't think actually that does improve your self-worth. I just think it improves your life and how you feel about yourself. But if you have low self-worth, at the end of the day, it's still there. You just haven't looked at it.
Yeah, and wherever we live, it's almost like whatever the society's rules are for that place in terms of what you need to be in order to be valued. And there you are trying to meet that. And then you go to another place where the rules suddenly change and you become that. So you realize it's actually got not a lot to do with the place around you. So in England, even with body image, I would imagine that what was classed as a desirable body and a desirable person in England would have been quite different over in, Dubai or the United Arab Emirates.
It's completely different. I have to say, in England, yes, it was definitely the skinny, muscly model. And I did always feel, I always felt uncomfortable and was much happier dressing like a boy, which I pretty much did, and being a tomboy. And then when I went to the Emirates, they loved much plumper women. So they used to say I was no good woman. because look at your arms, you're too skinny, you're no good woman, you're too thin. And I thought, that's great. Then nobody even looks at me here. I love it. I'm too skinny and I'm not in the least bit attracted to them.
I know that I remember you saying to me once when I came to you for help with weight loss, and you said, you don't need help with weight loss, you just need to move countries, because if you go and live over there, they go, you'll stop traffic.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I had a friend down the road who was pretty large and she loved her body and she loved how she's still like that. And she could never get in a taxi driver without a taxi driver asking if she'd be their wife. I mean, just everywhere she went, everyone was in love with her. And she'd go down the street and all the men would stop over their cars, come be my wife. Me, I was just told I was no good woman every day. And I'm like, yay. I just love this inattention to it.
You've got the figure that over here, we would assume that's who we all aspire to be. I mean, you've got like the dream body that we all want, but then you swap countries and it's very different. So when you've obviously had a lot of things happen in your life, so and obviously we don't need to go into specifics or anything like that because it's a very private journey, but your marriage obviously ended. Did that end while you were over there?
Well, the divorce didn't happen while we were over there, but the marriage ended. It probably was ended before we got there, but we did it all 10 years there together. Yeah, and I think that's a whole lot around not leaving your marriage when you know it's ended before you do, was a lot to do with my low self-worth. And after the marriage, I used to say to people, my self-worth, I'm just dragging it behind me like some huge sack. It's just so low. And I do think when that's the case, and I see it again and again with clients as well as myself, that you tend to go into dysfunctional relationships afterwards when you come out from a broken one where you've been sort of beaten down and degraded. And so if it wasn't any good to begin with, then it's put even lower. Then you generally, unless you do a lot of work on yourself, don't go into another good relationship.
Yeah, we generally lower the bar, don't we? Because if we're feeling that we are less than, we lower the bar and choose people that probably would be grateful to have us and are less likely to leave us. So we normalize a lot of behavior that we really shouldn't be normalizing.
Yeah, I think I did a lot worse than that. I didn't just lower the bar. I went like to the worst. It's like, I learned all my lessons in one go. A 3-year very bad relationship with some narcissistic psychopath. I'm like, I've learned all my lessons I needed to learn. Things. Get it all
But
done.
even that in itself, I mean, obviously that relationship ended. How do you find the courage to end a relationship like that when you are with someone that's just so toxic?
I remember the lady that taught me Aura Soma, actually, she gave me a reading. She said, why are you staying? Why are you going back to this? You've already been through so much. And I said, I don't know. And at the time there was a counselling from the heart, and I needed to get the counselling to get my colour therapy diploma. So I needed 36 hours of counselling, which I was doing at Tay. And she said, just do this course. He's coming over here. And I remember saying, I haven't done enough of this dysfunctional relationship. And I don't know why I said that, but it was really clear that I needed to stay there, that I wasn't ready to move on. And she thought that was odd. I do think that was odd. But when it came to the court case, I actually did need to stay another year. I would never have got, 1, my visa, and 2, my money back. So something in me was like, stay in this relationship another year, even though it's awful. And then I went on the counselling from the heart course. This is where I met Greg, my husband now. We've been together 18 years, I think, 17 years. But that in that course, it's like in the first day, I remember thinking in the first hour even, I learned more then than I'd ever learned in the past 20 years of everything I'd ever studied. And I just let go of everything. And when I came, the partner I was with said, he didn't want to talk to me the whole course. And at the end of it, he said, I'm sick of living with the Queen. And I said, and he said, you could go off and find yourself a prince or something. And I said, it's a king, actually. And you can be the one to leave because this Queen's staying here.
Oh, good on you. The story of how you met Greg, it is brilliant. And it's one that I just about was rolling around because of the way that you described it. Share with us the story of the event where you met Greg, and what was happening.
Well, I met him in that counselling from the heart, and I remember him sitting in, he was looking very sort of dishevelled that first day. And yeah, not so good. He'd had a really hard time, but he said he was from Harvey and he had an orange orchard and 3 boys. And I'd had this dream for a long, long, long time ago, I think, when I was doing the Artist Way in the Emirates, about an orange orchard. I'd actually gone all around Spain for 2 years looking for this orange orchard, looking for the place where I was going to run this retreat. And so it was like my ears pricked up and I went, there, that's the thing. And then at the end of we hung out all week together, and at the end of the course you did this, I can't even remember what it's called, this whole where you could ask what you wish for. It was a big meditation, which I didn't want to do, but my friend insisted I do it, and she insisted and then paid me, so do it because it was extra to the course. And I kept saying I didn't want to go. And then I ended up going, and I was put on a mat. I put a mat down next to Greg. We ended up next to each other, and you had to say out loud what you really wanted. And I said, I wanted a soulmate relationship, and it didn't matter what the person looked like or what it was. It was all about your relationship. And Greg had said, show me my soulmate, because he didn't think he was worthy of meeting the soulmate, so he had the low self-worth. And then they think they have a whole I can't remember what the whole thing is called, where they put the music and they say some people you might see the golden orb, and then that means that things come down, whatever it is. It's like the divine or the God. But I'm still pretty cynical at this age in my life. I was still like, yeah, whatever, I'm just here because someone paid. And I just said that because it's what I want. But when I opened my eyes, I saw this huge golden globe over the top of Greg, and he saw one over the top of me. And I remember thinking, no, not him, because he lives in Harvey. It's like Worth, and he's got 3 doors, and it looks like that. And it's like, that's too far away from my ideal. So I thought, well, that's a classic when your ego argues with the soul, or like your inner self says, here's your soulmate, and the ego goes, no, not with that person, please.
You're like, no, what's behind door number 2?
Yeah.
So you lived so far away, you met Greg, the universe pretty well aligned you both up. So you then made another decision to take a fairly big move. We're not talking just around the corner, are we?
No, that was I was up in the Swan Valley, and I moved down to Harvey, and we did look at houses everywhere there, but Greg had his business here, and I said, well, I'm an artist, I can work anywhere. So I moved down to Harvey, but I did really struggle with that move. I think I met you that first. I set up the shop. I said, well, you can't complain about a town, not liking a town, if you're not prepared to do something about changing it. So I set out a gallery in a shop for 6 months. And after 6 months, I went, no, it's not really working. Kept going back to Fremantle. But I met you then because it was just near where you were working.
Yeah. And I don't remember meeting you so much then. I remember when you came to talk to us, I started a weight loss group called the Harvey Motivators, Weapons of Mass Reduction. I thought that was pretty clever. And somebody recommended that I get you in to talk to us about how to choose healthy food. And you came in and did a little bit of a talk with us about using your body almost through kinesiology, about how to ask your body if this is good for you or if it's not good for you. And that was the first time I felt a conscious connection with you and thought, wow, who is this person? And I just started fangirling from that moment on, because the stuff that you taught me was phenomenal. And prior to that, I think I had a fairly cardboard sort of a life. Things were just as they were. I was never curious, but you saw things in such a different way, and you have this ability to see things in people that go far beyond the levels of their comprehension. And one of the things that you've taught me is that just because I can't rationalize something, it doesn't mean that it's not true. You've taught me to question and go way, way, way beyond. It's been it's been a real gift. So tell us a little bit about the business that you run. So the clients that you see and the work that you do, what are the most common sorts of clients that you see?
I think it's just so varied. I couldn't say the most common. I have a lot of people with all sorts of addictions. Certainly self-worth is one of the biggest ones. Almost everybody suffers from poor self-worth. Almost everybody does, and that would underlie everyone. I do this click thing where you get a resonating click in front of someone. If it's true for them, it doesn't mean to say it's the truth, it's just true for them, and no click if it isn't. If I were to say to someone, you have low self-worth, and do the click, almost everybody initially has that. And that's something
when we talk about doing the click, for those that don't know what the click is, tell us a little bit about what you mean by that.
So this is teachable. We did teach it to the group. As long as you can click your fingers, you can do it. I think we've got a few of us now in the group, a few other hypnotists that do this. It is actually something you learn when you learn to be a hypnotist. Most hypnotists click like this, click their fingers, and you'll find that all of them will click their fingers when they want to lock something in, when we want you to go lower. So we'll say, that's right, take another breath and you can relax now. But we set up, when in the hypnosis, we would set up something like, every time I click my fingers, you will not only go twice as deep, twice as relaxed, you will also let go of whatever it is we're doing, and then you click. So you click them down so they don't jolt out of the click, but they do whatever you've instructed them. But then we'll find your fingers don't click, even though you're intending them to, if the client hasn't let go of whatever you've asked, or they haven't done. Say we say, I want your subconscious mind to identify those emotions attached to that program, whatever the program is. Could be low self-worth, could be belief systems about yourself, and we click. If your fingers don't click, then we know they either haven't identified it, or they won't work with you, or something's wrong. So we use that click to get a resonance to what the frequency is coming out.
So it almost like tells you whether it's calibrating. When you ask a question and you click your fingers, if it's a very crisp, solid click, then you know that yes, that's correct. But if when you click, it's a bit of a dull sound, you know that there's extra work to be done there.
Yeah, that's right. So you've got to find another way around it. It's not convinced by the way you said it, or it doesn't understand the way you said it. So you've just got to work with people differently and the subconscious mind differently and what it is. But almost every client will have some sort of low self-worth somewhere. And if you have low self-worth, it doesn't mean to say you have it in every area of your life. And then we have to identify what is low self-worth in the beginning. Is it not value your life? Because you can present to someone incredibly confident and competent and with no fear. I mean, I might present like that. People say, I know when I've done lots of talks, people say, how are you so confident in doing this? But, I just fake it. You fake it till you become it. I love that phrase, feel the fear and do it anyway. It's like, I didn't even read the book. I just took the phrase and I thought, yeah, I'm going to live my life like that, because otherwise you never do anything. And it's not that I have great self-worth or that I don't think terrible things of myself or I'm not terrified. It's just that I want to walk through every door that's open. That's a great opportunity for me, and I don't want to look back on life and regret it. And all of the regrets I have, which are only like one, is the one where I just didn't go. I'm packing my backpack now and going with you. I just think, why didn't I take that opportunity? I just stayed in a marriage that wasn't worth it, and I should have gone off with this other person around the world.
I love when you said earlier that for you, self-worth happens when you take responsibility for your own thoughts and feelings, realize that you're not alone on that journey, but when you make it about a journey of the soul rather than a journey of the ego. And I thought, wow, that gave me tingles.
Yeah. Well, not everybody has a belief in the soul, but it doesn't matter. It's the essence of you. If you believe in there being another place and we have multiple levels of consciousness within us, which are all different parts of the subconscious mind. So you can say the soul is the essence of who you are inwardly. And for me, the self-worth is the things that you believe to be true about you, and you take them on board. For instance,
Yes.
I definitely grew up with I am ugly and no one wants to hear my voice and I'm boring. And they're things that were literally said to me every day of my life, I think, since I was born. So it doesn't matter whether they're true or not true. If you've decided they are true, then they end up this huge burden in your life that that will break you down. I've had moments and I've done all sorts of things all around the world and always come across as confident, even though I'm not confident. I'm crumbling inside. Because I do that, just do it anyway and just bluff it, fake it till you make it and fake it till you become it, and decide what sort of person you want to be. I don't want to be that person. But until you actually address those core issues that you've decided are true, they'll always be there. And at some point,
and that's the thing, because that's what a belief is. A belief is just something that we keep thinking and something that we've decided is true. And if you buy into that belief, like for you, like I'm ugly or all of those awful, awful things, you find that that runs you, because then any opportunity that comes along that might test that, you will say no to. You'll become an extra in your own life. You won't get on center stage. You'll always stay in the shadows. So it literally runs you. And who's to say that those beliefs by those people who installed those beliefs in you, you've got to start to wonder, where was their self-worth? They've taught you stuff about you through their own self-worth.
Yeah. And I think that's realizing, like, we all have these projections from other people as children. Everybody projects onto you. And I feel like that sort of becomes your wardrobe, and you're just seeing yourself through other people's projections, and other people are actually seeing you through those projections too, which is why people with autism like me just say those things back, because we're looking at you through those filters. And I'm thinking, wow, what a dirty filter, you need to clean your windows. But at some point you can say, when you start doing some work on yourself, you take all those clothes off and projections, but then you're naked. And if you've actually taken some of those into your heart as your beliefs, not other people's beliefs projected onto you, that's when you get crippled. And I know when I've done some deep shadow work, or when it's soul work, and I think it's like an ego death. We have these ego deaths as part of the self-work. I can be lying on the floor, the fetal position, the day is just actually I can't move with my own ugliness or my own how boring I am, and you just push through that. Otherwise, it's always there. And thank God I don't have it anymore. I've done that enough times now. It's like, so we're getting to 60 and finally finished that journey. And I think it's learning that, because when you've learned that and you've done that, it's so easy for me to shift it for someone else. Someone else will come here and I'm like, well, you don't need to go through what I've gone through all that awful shadow work. We can just shift that now, because I see how easy it is to do it.
I love that analogy that you just used. I think that's brilliant, that all of these beliefs that we have about ourselves are like our clothing. We literally dress ourselves in that. And the great thing about clothing is we can always change it, can't we? So for somebody that is wearing these beliefs and isn't aware of it, and maybe who's listening right now and thinking, oh my gosh, I never thought of it like that. I wonder what I'm wearing. What would be your advice to them? How do they change their clothes?
I think I've written some steps down, but really to have decide the sort of person you want to be. I was putting down how the first step to letting go of low self-worth is, first of all, recognizing you have the right to be here, because the worst self-worth cases are, I don't have the right to be on this earth. I don't even exist. And then
I'm going to write these steps down as you say them so that we can put them in the notes.
Yes, yep. Put them in I've got letting go low self-worth, recognizing that you have a right to be here and that you do exist.
Yeah.
Because often we're someone's unseen as children, or don't want to be seen, or don't want to be heard. And if you hear that every day, that's when you stay in the shadow, that I don't actually have the right. And who are we talking about? Not the outside you or the projections of you or the you that people want, but the you inside is screaming that I do exist.
Mm.
And the second step is deciding what sort of the person you want to be in this world. So you get to decide that. Nobody else gets to decide that. And if you don't know, you just look at people you admire and look at people I think I really enjoy their company, or I really enjoy watching that person. What qualities have they got that I want?
I was just about to ask that. Decide who you want to be. If you've already decided who you are and it's not good, how do you do that? But then you let in and said, well, pick someone else, pick someone who you would like to be like, and then notice what they're like. And then what would you do with that?
Well, then start emulating some of the qualities of what it is you like about them. And everyone's different, so it'll be different things. But that's when you do the fake it till you become it, really. Not fake it till you make it. It's fake it till you become it. You just keep faking it and faking it.
So how I'm curious now, before we go on to the other steps, how have you used this? How have you gone from being who you are and then choosing who you want to be like? How did you model them?
I think one of mine was doing presentations, because I love teaching, but I don't always have the confidence to teach or go out there. So I just pick people who present who are funny and emulate them. When I did my NLP coaching, you get the guys and just like mimic people. I think that's part of the autism, that you can watch someone and really imitate them and just do that. I like being funny. I remember learning all these jokes and trying to be really funny with something. And one of the guys I was sharing a house with once, he said to me, Paula, you're not funny, you're funny. What? He said, yeah, you're not funny like witty, you're funny as in like a clown. So everybody's laughing. They're laughing because you're funny. And I went, I don't know if that's insulting or not insulting, but as long as I make people laugh and I can laugh along with them, that's all right.
Oh, gosh. So step one, recognize you have a right to be here and that you are allowed to exist and you do exist. Step two, decide what sort of a person you want to be like. And if you don't know, have a look around you, find someone that you admire and notice what it is that they do. So
Yeah.
what do we do next?
Step three, valuing your life is the most important
Yeah.
step of good self-worth, and acknowledging that you are worthy. And you don't have to be worthy of anything. And I will say, worthy of what? When people come in, I think, worthy of what? They say, I don't know. I say, exactly. You don't need to be worthy of anything. You just need to be worthy.
That's a big thing because normally we want to be worthy of other people's opinions. We want to be worthy of approval. I think that's huge. You don't need to be worthy of anything in order to be worthy.
Yes. So I put one of the points I've got here, so that our definition of self is often defined by our relationship with others, as we are beings that crave connection and therefore approval. But that's how you've defined yourself. That isn't necessarily who you are. So that's why you have to decide who you want to be. And that has come from growing up, where we've created a definition of who we are from everyone around us. And that is then your family, your culture, where you grew up, which will have a very different opinion when you go somewhere else.
Huge. That's something we talk about a lot in the School of Self-Worth, is that what is it that we are using to measure our worthiness? And usually people say we're all using other people's opinions of us. And you think, well, what are they using to measure your worthiness? And the answer is they're using their own worth. So if they're not feeling worthy themselves, they're using a flawed instrument to measure your worth. But the big thing underneath that is self-worth is not measurable. It is absolutely not measurable. There is nothing that changes it.
Because otherwise you're always just looking for the outside world, whereas self-worth is a journey of empowerment, where it's about looking within, not on the outside. For instance, I don't think artists, well, certainly when I grew up, weren't valued like teachers weren't in England. Then you go to the Emirates and I was suddenly known as the artist and the teacher and really valued. But when I went to Spain and I was a secondary art teacher, remember one occasion I was in the staff room, and I think I had a short skirt on. And they said, I heard one of the teachers say to one of the Spanish teachers, it was all a Spanish school, but they spoke, they had to teach so many subjects in English, hence they had English teachers there for the baccalaureate. And then he said to this lady in Spanish, but I could understand it. My Spanish is appalling, but you're not allowed to wear skirts shorter than that level. And her skirt was knee level. And I went, oh, my skirt's higher than that. And everybody in the staff room turned around and said to me, that's okay, you're an artist, you can do what you want.
Oh.
And they said that's what it's like in Spain. We love artists. We just love you. So you don't have rules. You're an exception to them. And I thought, so this country is only valued and put on this kind of pedestal, and I get to do whatever I want. And I noticed that. And also they love women. So whatever age you are, or when you go around, you hear men saying, "Muy guapa," like you look fantastic. And they'll say it to the grandmas and they'll say it to the young ones, because they just appreciate women that take care of themselves. And it's like, not you're sexy or you're this, but you look great. Whereas in the Emirates, there's that whole, you've got to cover up and you mustn't look sexual or anything. And in England, there's and here, I think not now, but certainly in the 80s and 90s, that whole sort of misogynistic, women are just things and those sex objects. But in Spain, they love the sensuality of women. It's a whole different concept. So if you're always judging yourself and where you grow up, it could be fantastic in one country. Like I felt amazing in Spain, and really, and I felt great in Dubai. And then I came to Australia and I thought, wow, I feel even worse about myself here than I did in my 20s in England. So really, that's gauging yourself from other people's opinions doesn't do anything to your core belief.
But how great would it be if we all saw ourselves as an artist of ourselves and we get to do what we want?
Yeah. Don't follow anybody's rules. You're just your own rule.
So we have our steps. So that last one was that we need to, and you said it's the most important one of all, to value our life, to acknowledge that we are worthy. In fact, we don't need to be worthy of anything in order to be worthy.
No, I did remember I was just saying to a client I had on Monday, actually, and she said she really got this. We were talking about self-worth. I was talking to a colleague that I did all my training in hypnosis with, and we have very similar background in teaching and teacher trainings, basically the same educational background. She was talking about her marriage was not breaking down, but they were struggling, and we were just sitting on the bench outside the front door here, and the rain was coming down, and we were going chat about husbands and this. And she said to me, I'm not sure if he's worthy of my greatness. And I just looked at her and said, do you know, that's just incredible you can even say that, because I don't think my mind can even comprehend that thought. It's like, I just never even had a thought like that. I'm just so unaware of myself, or that even I could have this greatness, or someone be worthy of my greatness. And I thought, isn't that amazing? You can have such good self-worth that you can say that about your partner or your husband.
And I guess someone like that, they're not even aware of the concept of self-worth, because it's just who they are. To them, it doesn't appear as self-worth. It's just who they are.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, we're so different. We come from different perspectives. But yeah, she's very aware that she is this great being. And the client I had, she said she gets to see both. She does get to see this person's not worthy of her greatness, and she is great. And at the same token, she's been really, at times, have been really unaware of herself. And I thought, I always feel like I'm the observer of life and unaware whether I would be great. Other people might say I am, but other people could, like, say, you don't gauge on what other people, some people will think you're great and some people think you're awful. But I have an unawareness of what I am, but I think because I'm always just in the moment.
Yeah. And what a great way to be. So have you got any other steps for us?
Well, we did say the one about taking responsibility, which would be before you even start. If you don't ever take responsibility to your own thoughts and feelings, and have awareness at the same time that you are not your thoughts and you are not your feelings, you're not even your body, you're just this consciousness, and you can change that consciousness at any time, because consciousness is changeable, and you can choose to have any other consciousness. And also to
How
go,
do we do that? How do we choose another consciousness?
well, that's when you choose what sort of person you want to be, and then you think what qualities that they got, but what sort of consciousness would that person have to think like that and behave like that? What would their thoughts and beliefs about themselves be? Or what practices do they have? And part of it is discipline and putting in rituals in place. And I'm sure you've got lots of work, rituals and ethics. One is always showing up. And one of the other big things I remember learning in the very first NLP class is one of those weekend free ones where there's 300 people in the hall, and I can't remember the name of the guy, but it was just so awesome. And I changed so much that weekend and went, wow, I found this whole new thing. I think that was in 2006 or 7 or something. And he said, how you show up to one thing is how you show up to everything. In other words, you know, if you're going to the dentist or the supermarket, or you're seeing a friend or this, show up, you know, show up. And if you can't bother to show up to this, make an effort to this, then that's how you'll be in everything in your life. And I just thought that's so true.
It is true. And it's almost like our default programming. For those of you that are listening and you've heard Paula reference a few times now her NLP, NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming, and it really is, in a nutshell, it's about understanding that the way that we think and talk to ourselves actually programs our neurology. So the L in NLP is the linguistics, which is what we think about ourselves, programs, which is the P, and then the N, it programs our neurology. So the way that you talk to yourself becomes your operating system for all of your neural pathways. And if you think badly of yourself, you're actually going to act accordingly. So when you learn how to, when you do NLP with someone like us or someone like Paula, you get to change that linguistics, and the rest of it changes itself. It's like pulling that lever on the train tracks. When you change those linguistics, the way that you value yourself and other people changes automatically.
Yeah, definitely. It was huge. I think it's a great starting point to any journey where you're going to want to change things to do it. And there's lots of weekend courses that happen all over Australia. I mean, they come to Perth, I think, every year, and you don't need to go to coaching or do the master, but even just doing a 3-day or 4-day course is dynamic, you know.
And if it starts to loosen the grip, then your mind will start to take it from there, because often we just don't know what we don't know. And when you realize what you don't know and that there is another way, you become curious, and that's self-awareness. That's where the gold starts. I know that for the work that you do, Paula, it is so, I mean, I would liken you almost to being like a witch doctor. You do crazy stuff where
I've been called that a few times. I do.
Yeah, I mean, people who are really struggling with addictions will come and see you and be able to step free of them. I know that you, I mean, I'm one of them. I know that I've been to see you in the past and you've lifted a curse off me. I know that you've lifted curses off people, that you've changed people's trajectories in life, and you get to see parts of them that they don't have awareness of. So even though you call yourself a hypnotherapist, I think that what you really are goes far beyond that, because you can just look at someone and you get an overall sense of what they can't see, and you're able to treat the things that are really the problem rather than what they think is the problem. So if somebody's listening to you today and it's like, oh, I think that I would like to do some work with her because I don't know what the problem is, but I know there's a problem, and maybe Paula could see what that is and what I need to do. So if people don't live locally to you, can you still see them?
Oh, yes. I see people all over the world. And before we had the COVID, I was seeing people in China every week, and through a lady in Sydney who transcribed everything we said. I do a Zoom session, but I definitely see even people in Afghanistan who were there. I've seen them. People in England, people in America, anywhere in Australia, everywhere in the world, really. I just did someone last week in the Philippines.
Right.
Anyway.
So anybody that's listening to this, you are available to them. So how do we find you, Paula?
Probably go to my Facebook page, the Colour Journeys, and you can write on that, write message on that, and then we can arrange to link up a time, and I can do it through WhatsApp, Messenger, Zoom, so many
you
ways.
make it easy for people, which is good. So that Facebook page is Colour Journeys, and we will put a link to that in the show notes here so that you can scroll down and find out lots of ways to contact Paula and work with her. Is there anybody that wouldn't be someone who could work with you?
I think so, yes. There's people that aren't very good at working with their subconscious mind, and I pretty much know when I start talking to them, they're better off going straight for the medical profession. They don't have a belief in that, or they don't really want to work that way, or and definitely people that have got psychosis, schizophrenia, any of those things don't work this way. You need to go see a psychiatrist and things. If you have anything, or severe bipolar, I think it's dangerous to work with hypnosis and someone that's a hypnotist, because it can trigger things in the mind. And some people just do better with body work. They just do better going to an kinesiologist or an osteopath or a massage therapist who can do bowing and move things through the body.
You would be able to, like when you meet someone or even meet them online, you'd be able to tell pretty well straight away. I love the fact that you're not a therapist that will work with someone that you don't believe that you can get the results for. You would rather steer them on, and that speaks a lot of integrity as well.
You're not doing your business any favor if you work with someone and you can't get results.
Yeah. So what about those people who aren't really familiar with the subconscious mind? They're not really too sure how to do it, and and I'm sure that you see these people all the time, and they say things like, because I know that when I used to do hypnotherapy, they used to say things like, I can't visualize stuff.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah. And I say, what color's your car, or something like that. Oh, it's black. Well, how did you do that? Oh, and I just saw it in my head. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your front door look like? What's your front door look like? What did you wear yesterday?
It's funny, isn't it? People who think that they can't visualize, I used to say to them, how do you get home every day? And they're like, well, I just drive. It's like, well, how do you know where to turn? Well, I turn at that tree on my street. And I'm like, well, how do you know the tree's there? And it's like, oh, I see it. And I'm like, oh, so you can visualize. I think that we put those limitations on ourselves a lot. So,
and also when you do hypnosis, you tap into everybody. You tap into all of the senses. I never use just one anyway. I'll say you can hear this, see this, feel this, touch this, get the sense of here. Every sense is brought into there. So having a really 3D multi-conscious awareness. And I don't always use classic hypnosis with people. I tend to only use the hypnosis if I'm working with addicts, and where I get a lot of doctor referrals. And when I use a doctor referral, I'll stick to clinical hypnosis and not do any woo-woo stuff whatsoever. So I can continue to get doctor referrals.
Yeah. So before we come to a close today, I would like to know, what do you do when your self-worth is a bit low? What is that quick trick that you do that brings you back up to feeling okay?
I think I've done most of my shadow work now, but we all get the feeling, not feeling so good about self at times, or feeling nervous. And I always say, and here's the one question you should ask about everything, it's come from doing the work of Byron Katie, who's done a lot of inner shadow work. But I just say, is that really true? Is that really true? How do I know it's true?
Yeah.
And they're just classic.
Really interesting that you mentioned that, because Byron Katie was my very first step into what I'm doing now. My stepmom gave me a double CD of Byron Katie and Wayne Dyer, and I remember listening and thinking, what is this stuff? This is amazing. And it completely transformed me. It was really good. So we'll put a link to her in the notes as well so that people can find.
It's amazing. And if you're going to do any therapy work, you need to have studied all of those people. Yeah. I think if you're going to do any psychological work with people in therapy, you need to have looked at Byron Katie and studied all of that. I've studied all of the Carolyn Myss, who does all of the ones, and the Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journeys. And I like the journey home with Chiron too, looking at the more spiritual ones. But if you're not spiritual, these things work. Is it true? Like, is it true? How do I know it's true? Like, is it really true? And anything you could ask, I'm ugly, but is that true? Well, you might be ugly to someone, but you might be beautiful to other people. So it's not really true, is it? Because it's all a matter of someone's perception. And if at that time it's your perception,
so you just mentioned quite a few people there and a few resources. I'll get you, if when you get a chance, to send me through how we can access Carolyn Myss and the journey home and all of that, and I'll add them into the show notes as well. So as we end off today, I want to thank you so much, Paula, for coming on, because this has just been like, I get to share you with the world, and it's so exciting because you've been such a gift to my life. What thought would you like to leave today's session on?
I'd like to leave it that if you're struggling with low self-worth, there'll be millions of other people at exactly that moment struggling with the same thing you've got. That a lot of the self-worth issues we have are collective consciousness. They're not actually true. And if you ask, is this true? Is it really true? Whose perception of that truth is it? And that you're never alone. You can always get help, and you don't need to suffer alone.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you to you, and also to everybody who is listening or watching via the YouTube channel. And yeah, I will put in the show notes how you can get hold of Paula. And I urge you to contact her, especially if you are feeling that there is something just not quite right, but you don't know what it is. Paula, I'm guessing she'll probably say, "Oh, I'm not that good," but I know she is that good. She would probably be able to identify what that thing is. Alternatively, if you are looking for some ongoing support and you just want some simple education on how to improve your self-worth, I invite you to head on over to visit the School of Self-Worth, which you can find at rebootyourlife.com.au. Just click on the School of Self-Worth tab and it's all there. You can even get a sneak peek into what's included in Module 1 so that you can see if it's for you. Thank you, Paula. Thank you for not only sharing yourself with us today, but also for sharing your gift far and wide. You've been an incredible motivator and inspirer of my life, and I'm very, very grateful for you.
Thank you for doing this, doing the self-worth and sharing that, because it's such a needed program, and it is the greatest burden anyone will ever carry in their life is low self-worth. So thank you for even having a program.
Oh, thank you. It is a big burden, but not for long, not when they book in and see you.
And you, or you.
Oh, thank you. You have a great rest of the day, and we will talk again soon. So again, everyone who's listening, thank you. Have a really, really fabulous day, and realize you exist. The chances of you being here are about 400 trillion to 1. So remind yourself of that every time you think that you don't matter.
You are important.
You are important. On that note, sayonara. What's Spanish for see you later?
I don't know. Au revoir in French. Ciao in Italian. Now I can't even think what it is.
There we go. We got multilingual. All right. Catch you later, everybody. Bye.
Bye.